Hey y'all, it's Friday, and this week's topic is representation. Now, given the extreme lack of canon representation of non-binary people in popular media, rather than talking about positive representation or examples of good representation in this video, I wanted to make a video about negative representation and the effects that negative representation has on transgender youth. Now, for a while I thought I was on my own in this regard, but when I started talking to other trans people, I noticed that there was a real trend of being very negatively affected by some examples that we'd seen of transgender people in media when we were younger. In a lot of media, with the exception of media specifically geared towards transgender people, the only examples of trans people you see in that media is when they're thrown in as some sort of punchline to make fun of how ridiculous gender non-conforming people are, or make them seem like some token abnormality. When you're part of a minority that gets basically no media representation, you're kind of starved for role models, like we were talking about last week, and examples of people who show you what you're capable of as a person. When the only people like you're being exposed to in media are basically people calling you a freak show, that can be very damaging. I've talked to countless transgender people who say that a single representation that they came across put off their coming out for years. And I personally have my own story about that too. When I was about 12 years old, I watched an episode of Family Guy in which they were in the future and it was revealed that Meg Griffin was a trans man now going by the name of Ron. Meg Griffin, of course, was a trope throughout the entire show of being an unattractive and dysfunctional teenage girl. She had no friends and was constantly the butt of jokes of being extremely, extremely unattractive. And her transition from Meg Griffin into Ron Griffin only reinforced that same trope to the farthest degree. It felt like it was being implied in the show that because Meg was so unattractive and so socially inept and undesirable that she could not succeed in life as a woman and was therefore forced to live life as a man. Or at least that's how myself and a few other trans-masculine people have interpreted it. That was the first media representation I'd ever seen of a trans man. And every time I had gender-related thoughts after that, through most of my teen years, I just remember thinking back to the image of Meg Griffin as a man and how it was sort of implied that AFAB people who become men do so because they can't succeed at being female. And because of those media representations, that and a few others, I put way more effort into trying to succeed at being female in high school and to dress a lot more feminine than I was comfortable with, and to really try to assimilate myself into a female gender role because I didn't see another option that was socially acceptable. Now that's my story, but like I said, there are countless stories like it from trans people where they saw one negative representation that made them not want to confront their own identity for years afterwards. So I just really hope that creators of media and artists and filmmakers and animators and all of those people kind of wake up and understand that the people who control media control culture, and they control the way people think and think about each other and think about themselves. And when you are going to represent a minority in some piece of popular media, that representation is going to affect people, and it's going to affect the way people see that minority and the way that minority group sees themselves. Personally, I'm going into illustration right now because I want to be a comic artist, and a large portion of the reason I want to be a comic artist is because I want to be able to make media that is inclusive for everyone and has positive representations of all sorts of different types of people, because I've been really disappointed by media and the lack of responsibility in it, and the idea that because something is art, it should automatically be free from criticism, or that any criticism of it would be censorship. I just feel like there needs to be a lot more accountability within media as far as how they represent different groups of people. And since there aren't really many positive examples of trans and non-binary people in media, I thought I'd create a short list of examples of trans and non-binary people that exist in real life. Kate Bornstein is an American playwright born in 1948, and Z prefers Z-here pronouns. Yvonne E. Coyote is a Canadian writer, and they prefer they-them pronouns. Tom Felton is an American actor who plays on ABC's The Fosters, and they prefer they-them pronouns. Ray Spoon is a Canadian singer-songwriter, and they prefer they-them pronouns. Some other celebrities who have described their gender in non-binary terms include Tilda Swinton, Gerard Way, Peter Townsend. Also, a few trans people that I found in unexpected places include Lana Wachowski, who is actually the director of The Matrix, and Maddie Blaustein, who was a voice actor who played many roles in many different children's cartoons, including Meowth in Pokemon and Yugi's grandfather in Yu-Gi-Oh! So trans people are out there, in media and in every form of work, making huge contributions. Unfortunately, sometimes it's up to us to go find them. I just hope that in the future we see more representation of trans people in media that speak to the wonderful and talented role models we have in real life. Well, that's all I had to say, and I'll see you next week. Peace out.